Hello and welcome to another Bucky O'Hare episode commentary with me, Rosie Collins. This is Bye Bye Berserker Baboon, which is an episode I enjoy very much. That's why I've chosen it. We get to see Beetlejuicia, Bruiser's home world. We actually get to see everyone's home world. Bucky's, Jenny's, Deadeye's, and this time Bruiser's. We even get to see the 7 layers of factory on the entire surface of the Toad home world. So in that respect, I really don't feel like there's a missing piece from these 13 episodes. I see everything I want to see. Yes, a second season would have been welcome, but never mind, that's what I think. And I do think this is a better Bruiser episode than The Search for Bruce. I think the plot's a bit better, fewer contrivances and annoyances. I like this episode a lot, and we're starting with Toadborg playing some footage to remind us of how frightened toads are of Beetlejuice Berserker baboons. Watch out for Toad Air Marshal's epic facepalm. Here it comes. There we go, epic facepalm, when it was the video of Bruiser scrunching him up into a football and kicking him. The writer Roger Slifer has all these toads, Toadborg, and a bit later, Fricks or Frax, refer to the Air Marshal as Toad Air Marshal, suggesting he's not really a regular, because ordinarily they'll just go for Air Marshal. But he does a very good episode here, nonetheless. That was Fricks making faces, as the Air Marshal just told us. I shall come back to that when we see Frax in a moment, but it was to establish that's one-way glass. They're doing this scientific observation. The toads are even terrified and running away from video of Berserker baboons there. And they've put Frax in the other room, which makes sense because Fricks and Frax are a pair, and for a fair test you want to replicate the circumstances as much as possible. He just made one little face in the mirror there. Wasn't at Toad Air Marshal at all, of course, in either case. And that's because we need to get on and show the audience these goggles that make the baboons look wimpy, but also it kind of makes sense. It's probably just a coincidence that it's Frax in the short little face-making scene there. But in other episodes, the Warriors, which I've talked about, remember the double helix, and also in On the Blink, Frax seems to be slightly more sensible than Fricks. Probably just some new part for Toadborg, Fricks says, while Frax scratches his head and puzzles over Blinky being there a moment longer. So it kind of makes sense, probably just by complete coincidence though, that Frax only makes the one little face in the mirror there. The writer Roger Slifer is fairly generous to the Air Marshal, more than some writers I think, because he's very much in this discussion with the 2 chief toads, and he's made a very sensible point about the goggles being a neat trick, but the baboons still have their size and their strength and their coordinated attacks or whatever else they learn at the Berserker Academy. Here we see Susie, speaking of On the Blink, she's in that too, with a slightly different voice. I don't know if Margot Pinvidich, who does pretty much all the women and girls' voices single-handedly, forgot the voice. More likely she thought Susie's original voice would be a bit too close to TJ, who's just walked off there, having manipulated Willy with that high girly voice, oh Willy, that she really needs to evoke that character. That nonsensical cast on the DVD that I mentioned on a previous commentary has Piddly the Monk Rat being voiced by someone called Alexandra something. Alexandra Atkins. That's nonsense. There is no Piddly the monk rat. It would have been handy, though, for Margot to have an additional female voice helping her out. Susie's gone now, but I still want to make a point about her. In this and on the Blink, two different writers. She's an awful nag to poor Willie. And that's what I meant on a previous commentary when I said Deadeye's the best friend Willie makes in either universe. As it is two different writers, George Arthur Bloom in the case of On the Blink, it must be, in the series Bible, words to the effect of Willie's got this love interest, Susie, who's a horrible nag. Planet Bog, we're going to need to remember that later. The Toads would love to get their hands on that planet. You think they could quite easily if it's nothing but flies swarming round and round it. Probably not really worth the ruling, is it? Maybe they go there and pick up some supplies, snacks, when they feel like it. Here's another example of Toad Air Marshal being treated fairly well by this writer. For once, he's going to give some words of encouragement to Fricks and Fracks. Be brave now on this very dangerous mission to pick up this action figure that they want to showcase in this episode. It's a Himalaya-like landscape. It's the Toad equivalent of the Yeti or Abominable Snowman, or whatever you want to call it, that's being evoked here, something that we Earth, universe, human viewers can kind of relate to. Bruiser's earned the bronze banana. Is there a silver and a gold banana? Is the gold banana like the Victoria Cross? Is it so rare that Bruiser isn't allowed one? He has to do way braver and more meaningful stuff than he's already doing. His mother is a very amusing character, kind of stereotypical emotional mother. And this reminds me that in The Search for Bruce, Bruiser said, Ma would have been real proud of brother Bruce, would have been. And I always say, well, you could tell her all about it when you go and see her in Bye Bye Berserker Baboon. Bruce's macho chain is a handy bit of his design there, because without that, in that uniform, he'd just look like any other Berserker, but we could still see it's him. Now, I said on my commentary for the Corsair Canards, Willie gets to do everything as the link to us, the human audience, and I cited this as an example. He gets to go to the Berserker Academy. And here it is. And I don't have a lot to say about this, so I'm going to go back to Susie. She's right, that point she was making about TJ. Willie probably shouldn't be giving her his notes to cheat with. He doesn't believe it of TJ because she's managed to manipulate him with her denim cut-offs and her rather mature bosom and her pretty face. So Susie's making a good point, a valid point. She could, however, make it more gently rather than being angry about it and getting in his face. Did Shane Meyer get a go at the Iuga? Because that's not him recording that Iuga there. Maybe he did and was no good at it. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he's not really much of an Iuga-er, but Shane Meyer is absolutely brilliant. Now, here's a bit of a plot contrivance or convenience. We need to be reminded of the goggles that Toad just said to them, lower your goggles. What would make more sense would be if they'd been told that the whole planet has some kind of light or atmospheric condition unsuitable for Toad eyes, and that's why they have to wear the goggles. They are aware that they need to lower their goggles when they go to meet the enemy, and you think that might make them a bit suspicious. But no, they're fine with it. They're laughing at that wimpy baboon design. And they could have got away with only bothering about the design for Bruiser. We've seen it a couple of times now. In the Toad cinema room, just then. They could have got away with that. We don't really need to see other baboons looking like that. And we hardly do. And when we do, I must try and notice and point it out, because it's one of those things that are so brief. And I wonder, was that really worth it? Now, I've said before, they won't punch on this cartoon, but Willie's just thrown out the rule book, punching that toad right in the face there. He's fantastic. Special Baboon gas there doesn't affect Willie at all. Toadborg will say later his weapons weren't designed to work against Bucky O'Hare and his lot. Willie is genetically closer to Bruiser than any of them. You think it might have some effect on him, but no, it's extremely specific to Baboons. Deadeye and Blinky have paired off here. Deadeye tries to start a conversation about how he doesn't like banana gathering. Yeah, not really your bag, is it, Deadeye? Blinky doesn't get round to replying. And they've kind of paired off because Blinky's best friend Bruiser and Deadeye's best friend Willie have gone off together. Bucky and Jenny are still kind of hanging out together, and that leaves Deadeye and Blinky, but they haven't really had much to say to each other, as it turns out. Perhaps this news that Bruiser has been captured was, in a way, something of a relief. Blinky and Deadeye together, maybe feeling a bit awkward. A few different baboon designs here, with the farmer baboon and the baboon who hangs about at home with no shirt on, maybe even completely naked. Who can tell? His wife, possibly, if she's in there with him. Maybe he's the father of the baby baboon that we see later. And he goes around with absolutely no clothes on, and the baby will start to get embarrassed by him when it's a little bit older. As you can tell, I haven't got much to say about what's going on here. They're capturing all these baboons. They've got their goggles on. It's very, very clear what's going on. Back with Bruiser and Willie. And they brought them to this place with a lot of lab equipment, which will come in handy later on. And the plot will move on. And I want to speak about that when it happens. They're being very cruel. They're exerting power over what appears to be this very weak foe. But we're on the Toad ship now. We've moved on from that. We're coming back to another plot strand, getting nearer to finding out what Fricks and Fracks and the Air Marshal were doing in that Himalaya-like landscape. Waiting for the Terror Toad here. And here it comes. And we see a pink hand fitting through those bars there that probably it doesn't really quite fit through. And you feel bad for Toad, Air Marshal and Fricks and Fracks at this point. They've gone through all this, gone to all that trouble, risked their lives, and they've been told they don't even need the Terror Toad. But we'll see it later, of course. That was just a tease with the arm there. We have to remember Planet Bog. We have to remember the pink arm and the roaring. But fortunately, despite how well the Toads were getting on with their goggles and their gas, Bucky and crew are here to help. And in a moment, Toadbor's going to wonder, what's he doing there? Probably, after a moment's more thought, they're keen on this farmer design, and there's one kind of, I don't know, soldiery looking baboon with them. After a moment's thought, Toadborg may well work out. Here he is getting the news. Well, it's something to do with Bucky's own baboon, his space marine that he has on board, that one I was showing the video of earlier. Gone to visit his family, gone to get some kind of medal, maybe. But he didn't know they were going to do that on that particular day. It's an unpleasant surprise for him, and as he's just said, yes, we're going to need the secret weapon after all. Here it comes. Lowering it within its cage and setting it loose on the surface of the planet. And we finally get to see it's a massive, incredibly warty pink toad with sharp teeth and macho chains of its own. And it is to sell an action figure that never even got made, but actually it's quite organically included here. They had these special weapons and goggles for the baboons. Bucky and his crew were an unexpected obstacle to the toads. It was as well to have him against the baboons anyway, and it makes sense that they've got it and that they've decided to release it. And another thing is that it's kept the action going without any dithering over, oh, why aren't the toads afraid? Why are they standing up to us baboons? Why are they so confident to poke us with sticks? This is the time in the story, as well as the time on the writing frame for the episode, for Willie to notice the goggles. Or maybe he's even noticed them before, but have a chance to examine the goggles and work out what's going on here and start to sort it all out. There he goes. See him straight away. Don't just go punching the toads, but actually use his brain, his eyes, make these observations. That's fantastic. That's very in character for Willie. He's still being brave now, and he's pulling the goggles off the toad because that's the thing to do. The blind panic is extremely effective at stopping this attack here. The one that could see them before the rest was in such a panic he actually shot the bars of the cage off that was holding the baboons. They already had them prisoner, and his panic allowed them to escape. It's all very stimulating, very good, and quite organic stuff that makes a lot of sense, and that's why I like this episode. So well done, Roger Slifer. Yes, there's lab equipment here. Willie is going to negate the polarity of those goggles, and he said that they are specially polarized. You will hear characters in things, including on The Blink, an episode of this show, saying, oh, I'm going to reverse the polarity and I can do whatever I need to do for the plot. Doesn't usually make sense, but Willie saying that the goggles are specially polarized and he's going to negate the polarity makes sense. Now, there was some debate for a while in my house as to whether the Terror Toad here was saying Bucky or Ducky. I've always thought, and I still think, Ducky, for a couple of reasons. One is that he's never seen Bucky and doesn't know who he is. And another is that even though the animation, Bucky doing his Bugs Bunny there, that's worth pointing out, there's the baby baboon I mentioned, it's cute. Despite the animation having everyone react the same kind of facially there, it is Deadeye who responds to that word, wants to beat a hasty retreat. And I always think that the intention was that the Terror Toad was specifically targeting him, as he's doing now. Maybe he hasn't seen many ducks, but he's seen and eaten at least one who was exploring or whatever in that Himalaya-like environment. And he has discovered that he likes a bit of duck surprise, which, as Basil Fawlty will tell you, and there was that little bit hardly worth bothering about with two other scrawny-looking baboons for the reveal to the toad there. As Basil Fawlty will tell you, duck surprise is duck without orange or cherries, but perhaps that's fallen a bit flat as a punchline because I had to break that up a bit with everything else that was going on. Something else now, a little nod to Jenny and what she can do. I don't know how aware the Terror Toad was of any imminent threat from her there, but picking her up like that has stopped it anyway. Earlier on, the Air Marshal and Fricks and Fracks were throwing him some meat, I imagine a big slab of meat. He likes that, but he likes flies too, just like any other toad, and that's why we had to remember the planet Bog. And in a moment, Bucky's going to remind us. Of course, Bruiser would know all about that, with it being so close to his home world. Maybe the toads aren't very aware of it because they haven't really bothered going that close to Beetlejuice before. And again, Rather like in The Good, the Bad and the Warty, Toad Air Marshal was just getting a right telling off there for something that wasn't his fault. And here goes Bucky, reminding us of the planet Bog, using the Righteous Indignation's special scooping tool there to scoop up loads of flies. And Willy once more is getting congratulated. They'd be sunk without Willy. He's a fantastic character, and he's had this thematic link with the plot, which was why we saw him earlier setting that up. He's been deluding himself, wearing some goggles to see TJ and how she's using him in the wrong way. And he's learned his lesson, and despite her fiddling about with his hair, no more notes for you, TJ. And Susie is very pleased, and she's trying the physical stuff as well now that she is pleased with Willy. Willy wasn't even sure that she liked him. Well, Willy, why would you think that she liked you? She's always nagging and telling you off in whatever voice she's got, in whatever episode she's in. But I guess the intention is that those two are meant to be together, and they're going to go to the dance on Friday. Or Saturday, if TJ had it right. And that's how the episode concludes. Dale Wilson got the credit at the bottom there. Doesn't he do a fantastic baboon voice? Another thing that was too good to lose, along with Bruce in the first episode, why they introduced Bruiser, and led to that episode idea. Very good, very sense-making episode that I enjoy very much. Thank you for listening to me speak about it. I have no definite plans. Oh, there was a credit for Roger Slifer, quite involved in the creative side. No immediate plans to do any more of these commentaries or not do any more, but either way, thank you very much for joining me for them. Goodbye.